What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Off the Top Rope, Off the Mike Sports Network. Thanks for tuning in here. Appreciate y'all. Over 1,700. We're getting close to 1,800 subscribers. But a big story in the world of sports broke on Monday morning, and it ties into professional wrestling because TKO, the parent company, Endeavor, it's also directly in line and owns UFC, and UFC came to terms with Paramount, CBS, that whole group. Basically, I think it's Paramount technically oversees CBS, but they have agreed on a media rights partnership, media rights deal. 7 years, $7.7 billion. So if you crunch the numbers here, $1.6 billion over 5 years for WWE on ESPN starting next year. So that's upwards of $9 billion from TKO. So listen, you guys can call them greedy fucks, but they've made a ton of money. But the significant thing that came out of this news from the UFC is that essentially the pay-per-view model is about to die because a lot of, major boxing matches have now been streaming on Netflix. Obviously, WWE's gotten into streaming with their premium live events. And UFC had a huge issue when they moved to ESPN, where they were on ESPN Plus, and then you had an upcharge just to buy the event. So they were ripping people off. It was like, I think pay-per-views were going upwards of $50, $60, and you had to pay the subscription fee, which I think was like about $15 or so a month, just to have access to it. So like this, people were getting ripped off. So this is a big deal. The other news out of this is that it looks like major UFC events are going to air on the Paramount networks, mainly on network television, network broadcast television in CBS. That is a big, big fucking deal. So you guys may be asking yourself, Mike, why are you bringing this up? Because I noticed that a lot of people have been taking it upon themselves to shit on WWE and TKO for, obviously going from the extreme of, hey, they catered us 10 years ago to pay $9.99 for the WWE network, and now they want us to spend $30. Still some things to figure out. WWE's not launching that. I don't even think it's going to be at the Royal Rumble. I think WrestleMania 42 is going to be the first show that you're actually going to need to go to that direct-to-consumer ESPN app that they're going to make out. But, and maybe this is just my own twisted mind. People think I hate AEW, but AEW had a media rights partnership that was agreed to last year. It's been almost a year since they signed that deal and they announced that deal. We were under the impression, because HBO Max, or Max as it was called back then, hey, they were going to be on a streaming service. Cool. And, a lot of people like to trumpet that up when they bring up the Dynamite and Collision ratings, which I think is a bullshit, bogus narrative. But here's the question that I got to ask. UFC got out of the pay-per-view business already. They figured it out. Why in the world is Tony Khan still hanging on to this pay-per-view model? Not just that, he had to go to a different streaming service in Amazon Prime Video to just distribute his pay-per-views, and he's still charging $50 a month. Now, if you're into this stuff, you're going to pay $50 for it no matter what. But I figured that AEW had a really big opportunity to get ahead of this, and they could have gotten ahead of this even further. And maybe optically, a lot of things would have looked better for them because the content, if you're outside of the, AEW geek sphere, this has not been a great year for professional wrestling in general. But WWE's built up a lot of goodwill. And what I was perplexed by last year when AEW announced their media rights deal and then they brought in HBO Max, I was like, okay, why aren't the pay-per-views, or why are you having us pay more money for that? Like, it should be about being, user friendly. And so when everybody just freaked out last week over the direct to consumer announcement, when you actually factor in some of the stuff that goes in with WWE, it is an expense. $30 a month is not easy, but the fact is, you have a lot of things that you can factor into that if you're a diehard sports fan. So it's going to be easy to sell that. Now, HBO Max has got the same thing. They've got, like, listen, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be bummed when, WWE leaves Peacock. There's some good stuff on there. If you're a fan of NBC television shows, it's fine. And obviously the sporting variety, the NBA is going there, Big 10 football, college football, the NFL streams on there occasionally. So it's not a terrible expense. So, but what perplexed me as a direct competitor, and WWE really, a lot of their streaming partnerships, they've upped the charges to a lot of these things, and hey, they're doing good business. How in the world did AEW miss this opportunity to be like, hey, we can be more affordable? Because I think it's part of the reason why some people have been driven away from the product. The product week to week has not been good. And when you don't, and I've said this consistently, when you don't deliver quality television, people are not going to want to pay the amount of buys, or they're not going to pay $50 to watch a pay-per-view, or premium live event. That's the reason why, a lot of people have been semi-tolerable of sometimes when WWE was in the shitter, is because all of these events, all you had to do was basically, get a subscription to the WWE Network or Peacock during the dark days of Vince McMahon. It was $10 a month, and hey, you could watch them with ads, or or it was like $5 with ads, and it's like, it wasn't the most insufferable thing in the world. So AEW's always kind of delivered on pay-per-view, and they banked on that, but sometimes the build has to attach to it. So when I saw that this thing came out with UFC, I was like, okay, UFC's been in business for a long time. And I know a lot of people who have covered that sport for a long time saying it's amazing how that sport has evolved and, been able to, be very forward thinking to get to different platforms. And now obviously we're in position to be on broadcast television for some of their big events. That's like the Super Bowl and stuff gets on broadcast television. Like it's a big deal for UFC. And it's just, I feel like it's another thing that I'm thinking about in my mind of, is another case of a missed opportunity, because, AEW, does deliver quality wrestling, but at the same time, do they really deliver for their fans? Because this should have been done, like they were one of the first people to, like, you could have had gotten a chance to stream, because listen, WWE's been doing it for a decade. I understood AEW initially out of the gate wasn't going to be able to do it because, hey, they got to try and make money out of it. But if you're really about your fans, like, why, when you had a chance to up to the partnership, and then we knew that there was going to be a streaming component to it, how do you not have that ability to do that when other companies are starting to figure out? Now the UFC figured it out. At some point, streaming is going to take over the pay-per-view model. I think the pay-per-view model is going to die. It's going to die. Nobody wants to spend $50, $60 to watch an event. Streaming is where it is. A lot of people are cutting the cord. A lot of people are bundling things. That's going to be another popular thing. I mean, cable might actually become a thing because you can bundle, like, services through your cable provider, which is going to be really interesting to talk about. So, like I said, a lot of this is really interesting, especially in the last week with the stuff that WWE did. And then obviously, TKO furthering that with UFC. Like, really, you can hate the WWE and TKO for, like, being greedy bastards, but they made a ton of money in the last week and a half with these two partnerships. UFC, obviously, with Paramount, and then, WWE with ESPN. So anyway, we'll have a lot more coming here on the channel. I just wonder what the fuck AEW, Tony Khan being a businessman, it's like, listen, people have found ways to make themselves profitable and not have to rely on pay-per-view. So I think it's a dead model. Anyway, thanks so much. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.